He stood at his post on the harbor wall before the sun had cleared the ridge to the east. He had stood there every night for 3 years, adjusting his grip on his spear shaft, watching the firelight in the Roman camp settle into coals across the water. The harbor below him was still. The warships that had broken through the Roman blockade 2 summers ago were gone, burned or dragged aground when the fuel ran out. It was spring of the year 146 BC. Carthage was still standing. But the lower city had been burning for 6 days, and the fire was moving uphill. By the time Dawn reached his post again, the city would be gone. He did not know it. The walls had held for 3 years. He had no reason to believe this morning would be different from the 700 before it. He was wrong. 3 centuries before this morning, Carthage was the wealthiest city in the Western Mediterranean. Its harbor was the engineering marvel of the ancient world, a circular inner basin for its warships, ringed by covered dockyards where 500 vessels could be maintained, invisible from the sea. Its merchant ships had reached Britain for tin, the coast of West Africa for gold, and the outer Atlantic, where Carthaginian sailors went and told no one what they found there. The city that Scipio Aemilianus now surrounded had held Rome itself in dread for over a century. Hannibal had come within a march of the city. Carthage lost that war and rebuilt, and then it came back again. But every time a civilization survives, it survives smaller. This is Carthage on its final night. In the year 149 BC, 3 years before this morning, the Roman Senate issued an ultimatum to Carthage. The terms arrived in 2 stages. First came the demand to surrender weapons and 300 children of Carthage's leading families as hostages. The city complied and sent both. Then came the second demand. Abandon your city. You may rebuild it, but only 10 miles inland, away from the sea. The city refused. What happened in the weeks after that refusal belongs among the more extraordinary things in the record of ancient warfare. A city that had already surrendered its weapons melted down temple offerings to cast new swords. Women cut their own hair to braid into bowstrings for siege engines. Appian of Alexandria, writing in the 2nd century AD from accounts gathered within living memory of the events, recorded that the workshops of Carthage ran through the night, producing arms that should have taken years to replace. The harbor, the very thing that made Carthage worth fighting for, was a warning sign nobody in Rome read correctly. A city willing to fight rather than live 10 miles from the sea was going to resist in ways Rome had not prepared for. That detail was ignored, and the first 2 years of the siege paid for the oversight. 2 consecutive Roman consuls failed to breach the walls. But here is the detail the ancient accounts record, and most modern retellings miss. In the 2nd year of the siege, Carthage dug a secret channel from the inner harbor to the open sea, wide enough for warships, without the besieging army knowing. When a Carthaginian fleet sailed out through that channel to engage the Roman ships in open water, the reaction in the Roman camp was described by ancient observers as shock. A starving city under siege does not build a fleet in secret. The Carthaginian fleet hesitated after its first strike, and the Romans recovered. That afternoon on the water, that single delay returned the initiative to Rome. Carthage would not have another opening. The Roman Senate sent Scipio Aemilianus in 147 BC, elected consul ahead of the usual age, specifically to finish what 2 armies had failed to do. He arrived, imposed discipline, and built a stone mole across the mouth of the harbor. The noose closed. By the final winter, the cooking fires inside the city had gone dark one by one. For a stretch, things appeared quiet from the Roman camp, but that silence had a particular quality. The fuel inside the walls had been burned through. The grain stores had been emptied. A city eats itself down to the bone before it gives in, and that is what the darkening roofline across the water told Scipio's officers every night. In the spring of 146 BC, Scipio pushed his forces through a breach in the lower harbor wall. What followed was unlike any battle the Roman legions had fought before. Carthage did not have open streets. It had tight, packed neighborhoods built centuries deep. Stone houses 3 and 4 stories tall, with rooftops connected to rooftops by wooden planks, and every window a fighting position. When Roman soldiers took the ground floor of a building, the defenders retreated upstairs. When the soldiers reached the upper floors, the defenders crossed the planks to the next rooftop and pulled the planks behind them. You are moving through these streets. The smoke is so thick you cannot see the soldiers 10 feet ahead. The planks are burning. The buildings above you are burning. You do not stop, because there is nowhere behind you that is not also burning. Appian records how Scipio's officers watched their own soldiers lose their footing on the high planks and fall into the streets below, and Scipio refused to halt the advance even then. The city was going to burn whether the legions advanced or retreated. 6 days of this. 6 days of moving uphill through a city that was coming down around the soldiers fighting their way through it. Most people have never encountered this part of the account because it lives in a Greek text that almost no one reads any longer. But the 6 days Appian describes explains something the standard account of the fall of Carthage leaves out. The city did not fall the way cities usually fall. It burned from the bottom up, block by block, while people were still inside it. If you are finding this channel for the first time, subscribe. Each time the clock runs out on a city, we will be there. While Scipio's forces pushed through the lower neighborhoods, the surviving population of Carthage was climbing toward the hill of Byrsa at the center of the city. The temple of Eschmoun stood there, on the highest ground. Appian estimates 50,000 people gathered on that hill by the time the lower city had fallen. Modern scholars dispute the precise figure, as the population had been declining through 3 years of siege and famine, but the scale is not in dispute. The entire surviving population of a great city was compressed onto one hill, in one temple complex, waiting. Hasdrubal was among them. He had commanded the Carthaginian defense for 3 years. His name had been, in Roman circles, the name of the man who had forced this war to last as long as it had. Up to this point, Hasdrubal had been the public symbol of Carthaginian defiance. That was about to reverse. He came down from the citadel alone. He crossed to the Roman lines and prostrated himself before Scipio. Appian records that he asked for mercy for himself alone. The city behind him was still burning. If that seems like an extraordinary thing for a military commander to do while his city burned behind him, what came next was more so. From the roof of the temple of Eschmoun, high on the Byrsa above everything, Hasdrubal's wife appeared. She had their 2 sons with her. She addressed her husband below, in front of the assembled Roman forces, asking whether this was conduct fitting a man who had called himself the defender of Carthage. Appian records her words as a curse, delivered loudly enough to carry over the fire. Then she took her children and walked into the temple. Appian wrote this from eyewitness accounts gathered within the lifetime of people who were present at the siege. This is the record, and it is not a later embellishment. Everything was in motion: the fire, the smoke, the Roman formations pushing through the last streets. Nobody watching from the citadel steps understood that what they were seeing was the final hour of a civilization that had stood for 700 years. Everything was in place, and none of those watching yet knew what it had been building toward. Polybius of Megalopolis was present at the fall of Carthage. He had spent years in Rome, had traveled with Roman armies, and had become Scipio's companion and observer. He was in the camp when the final position fell. He wrote that Scipio stood at the edge of the burning city and wept. You would think a victorious general would keep what he felt to himself. Scipio did not. He quoted lines from Homer's Iliad about the fall of Troy, about sacred cities brought to dust. And then, according to Polybius, he said aloud that he feared one day the same fate would come for Rome. Nobody in his army who heard it forgot it. Everything Scipio's discipline had built, the mole, the sealed perimeter, the 6-day advance through a burning city, had done what 2 Roman armies before him had failed to do. And now everything Carthage had ever been was going into the fire. The libraries were gone, the maps, the merchant records. Whatever knowledge the Carthaginians had carried back from the coasts they reached and never told the world about, all of it burned. The excavations of the 19th and 20th centuries found a deep layer of ash and melted material beneath the later Roman construction on the same site. Uniform and unmistakable, the physical signature of those days. There is a famous story that Rome salted the earth of Carthage afterward to make certain nothing would grow there again. And no, I am not making that up. The story has no basis in any ancient source. Appian does not record it. Polybius does not record it. Livy does not record it. The account appears first in modern historical writing, probably in the 19th century. We know this in part because Julius Caesar, less than a century after 146 BC, ordered a Roman colony built on the same site, which became a major city of the empire. Nobody builds a city on land they believe to be permanently poisoned. The myth persists because the scale of the destruction demands a myth to match it, but the record does not support it. What the archaeology found beneath Roman Carthage, in the burned layer and in the fragments of household objects in the upper city, was something quieter than a salted wasteland. Storage jars still sealed. Bronze weights for a merchant's scale. The walls of the sacred enclosure near the harbor surviving in fragments under centuries of later construction. A civilization in the middle of ordinary life at the moment it ended. The night watchman who stood at his post before dawn that morning has no name in the record. He is the composite of every person Appian places in the final defense of the Bursa. The archaeological layer his city left behind is 3 feet deep in places and extends across the hill where he stood. The ones who held their posts until the end shared a single thought. The walls had held for 3 years. Carthage had survived before, and it would survive again. 700 years of surviving had made that seem like a certainty. It was not a certainty. If this is the kind of history that stays with you, subscribe. The next time the clock runs out on a city, we will be there. And if Carthage held you, Pompeii will not let you go. We followed that city from its first fire of the morning to the moment the mountain ended it, hour by hour. Tap The Last Day of Pompeii, 79 AD, hour by hour, on the screen right now. It is there for you.